Is this virus so lethal that it justifies extreme emergency measures likely to trigger substantial, significant economic impacts as well as impacts on civil liberties and ultimately, in the long term, quite possibly bigger impacts on the health systems of countries than has been caused to date? I was starting to worry about my current assessment. No one wants to be in a fringe minority, and I did not want to end up in the UK being cancelled as an anti-lockdown fanatic. So I decided to review the facts afresh. Well, here I am. This is interesting. I wrote a letter to the owners of this boat, which I really like. It's best in the dock. And to my delight, they've accepted my invitation to do an interview. Good evening.
Welcome.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What a beautiful day for a bit of...
Yeah, but it's a little cold.
Oh, it's chilly, isn't it?
Yeah.
They kindly gave me a tour of the boat, but I could not help being drawn back to the central question and having mental perambulations about whether the governments had taken proportionate steps. It was now May, and the deaths in the UK were up to 30,000, in Sweden 3,000, and in Poland 650. But the numbers of deaths were coming down quite fast, certainly in the UK, the peak having been mid-April. The question for me was one of simple context. Victoria was a teacher, and this made me mull over an analogy. Put yourself into the shoes of a school governor or headmaster. What if you learned that 10% odd of the children had contracted an illness, and 5 had died? That is a worry, surely. But you will also think for a moment, how many children are there in the school? Is it a primary school of 100? If it is a larger school of 1,000, it is still a worry. But you are now starting to look at context. But what if you are a local authority and have 10 schools in your area of 1,000 children each, and you discover that 5 children have died in total across all those schools?
And are you pleased with your progress?
And do not forget that the medical officer at your schools also reminds you that 150 students die each year anyway from a great range of other diseases. In fact, did this analogy go far enough? The average age of those 5 was 80. And they were all already ill with other diseases. Nearly 50% had been in care homes, where the average life expectancy is under 6 months. Are you going to close the whole school and send everybody home?
Killing disease?
Is it a killer? Is it a lethal disease? For example, the American doctor Dr. Anthony Fauci said it was 10 times more dangerous than the flu. So is it a killer? Is it a very dangerous killer disease?
Yeah, it's dangerous. Yes.
Okay, so you've got 2 yeses there. Next question. Do you think your government are doing the right thing in following Dr. Anders Tegnell's guidance?
Yes.
Yes, I think so.
Yes. Okay.
But with a lot of but you couldn't say but.
No, you're not allowed that.
Yes or no. He don't know what he's doing.
Ah, that's a tricky but.
Yes.
But he's doing the right thing.
He's doing
But he's just doing it.
He doesn't know.
Okay.
He doesn't know what he's doing, but he's doing the right thing.
He's just the face on the television.
But to say,
Do you follow the guidance?
Oh, yes,
Yes,
of course,
yes.
of course.
Yes.
You just
I heard the wrong word.
okay.
Yes.
yeah.
So you are suggesting that it was a good idea to impose some kind of
Restrictions.
restrictions
Yes.
in order to slow the spread so that hospitals weren't, so that hospitals could handle
Manage,
Yeah,
exactly.
the situation.
Yes.
There's not many voices who are brave enough to disagree with the decision, because it's not the decision of the government. It's like the people have accepted that it's a terrible situation and we've got to lock down completely. And the government has kind of unfortunately let out figures that are scary figures. You know, if you want to motivate people to do something, you just use fear. And sadly, rather than love, you terrify them and then they're yours. I mean, that's a psychological situation, isn't it? Because they're terrified. You take a number with 5 zeros and a 5, 500,000, million, dying. You're scared. You take it out of context, you don't realise there's whatever 50 billion people in the planet, and that's 0.0 what pumps, whatever.
Yeah.
And that presses a fear trigger, and then everyone is eating from your hands. I think the government might be thinking, oh, this is interesting. This is quite a clever way of getting everybody to do what we want. It makes life for the police officer quite simple. He's got no problems. No one's on the streets. Makes his job quite simple. He's got quite a good life at the moment.
Yeah.
So the authorities must think it's quite efficient. No traffic jams, no road deaths, no chaos on the tube and the metros.
You can clean your country now.
You could clean your country, yeah.
Ooh.
Just by pressing the fear button.
Yeah.
Do you think this has got some merit? The idea that perhaps big corporations are behind it, or individuals are behind this situation, or was this just nonsense?
Nonsense.
Nonsense. Okay? And I like it.
But I'm interested to.
It's interesting though, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Because maybe we're wrong and we've got to
Yeah,
well, it's nonsense. But maybe it's not.
Don't know, but I listen.
I wandered down to the river to reflect. Would Victoria have thought the illness was lethal had the facts been put in context in this way? It reminded me of an interview when I had first arrived in Stockholm.
I think I might be one of few that says no. It's like, of course it's deadly, but like not a lot more than other viruses.
It's kind of a cute little sign, this one. Håll 2 meter så ofta du kan. Don't know what that means. I see this chap quite a lot out on my walks. He has this capacity for immobility. That's about as active as he gets. He's just, I don't know, pulling the bits out of his hair, perhaps the blossom or something else, some gunk. I wonder what he makes of it all. My hunch is he's probably not as contaminated with the media fear virus as a lot of us. The time had come to say goodbye to Stockholm and the Haymarket. And as I reflected on it all, packing my bags, I really couldn't understand the exaggerated nature of the response. Perhaps I really was in a fantasy world, all of my own making. I went online for reassurance, stumbling first on a daytime television show reporting the chaos in the
I've got
UK.
to be alert at all times. I mean, this alert thing. What's alert, for goodness sake? I mean,
we had the other graph, the other thing that had red at the top, which was like red for danger, and then we had green at the bottom where there's nothing, right? So there's no longer nothing's present in the. What does 4, 3, and 2 actually mean?
People were saying
there's nothing written on there.
Absolutely meaningless. Meaningless. It's like I said the same thing about the terror.
It took me only a few minutes to discover that I was not a lone voice. Sunetra Gupta was in fact the professor of theoretical epidemiology who had been preferred by Oxford University over the infamous Neil Ferguson as the head of department. But it rather seemed as if her voice had been ignored.
I think we will and already have developed herd immunity
and we will continue to manage it through herd immunity or accommodate it through herd immunity, as we do many other lethal pathogens. I think flu is much more dangerous actually than COVID, and I think that this particular virus will settle into an endemic state, just like flu does with the human population.
Laugh, now apparently you can play golf, tennis, and you can fish.
But not in Wales, Scotland, or Northern Ireland.
But not with both parents.
Yeah, not in Wales.
Oh my gosh, I don't think I'm none the wiser there after that chat, however. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
She may have been none the wiser, but a part of me felt that while they were enjoying the pantomime, it was they, of the media, that had trumped up much of the hysteria in the first place. None of them seemed to have given the matter any proper scrutiny. Perhaps the lockdowns were fair enough to save the NHS from being overwhelmed. Let's take our university example once more. Maybe the dean acted correctly in sending everybody home for a few weeks whilst he assessed the severity of the problem. But now in May, there really did seem to be a genuine and far from fanciful danger of collateral damage.
That's the trouble. So we don't know who's going to suffer, but if you do, there have been 3 published bits of work now, one from King's College in South London, one from University College, and one from Cancer Research UK. And they're trying to calculate, all the studies try and calculate the total number of excess deaths due to cancer caused by the pandemic.
So they are doing that work.
They've done that, and they've come to different. They've done the work. So but they're predictions. They're not real, because you can only do the real in future. You can do it retrospectively. So come this time next year, you can look at the analysis and see what's happening. But the predictions, Cancer Research UK, 25,000 excess deaths. University College 35,000, and King's College about 50,000 excess deaths. And we did a back of the envelope, we never published it right at the beginning, and came to about 50,000 excess deaths due to cancer if you carry on for more than 4 months with poor access to diagnostic services, basically.
Look at that. That's not even 2 millimetres, let alone 2 metres. Naked, I dare say, I won't go into it, bodily fluids are involved. Goodness gracious, I think there's one down there of them taking a bath together. It's a veritable petri dish of infection, and it should be banned. There should be laws implemented to deal with this sort of scurrilous, clandestine behaviour. Look at that one, riding a bicycle together, not even on 2 separate bikes. There should be some sort of legislation about that. The big point is nobody's setting this in any sort of a context. Everybody is looking at it in terms of, just the figures that are produced on a daily routine basis, that are drilled into the back of your head, whatever it is, the lizard part of your brain, the reptile part of your brain, and it goes in like litmus paper, and advertisers understand this extremely well. If you basically douse someone in enough information repeatedly, eventually they will start to believe it. And this is what they're starting to believe. Our focus or our obsession is just on this particular issue during this particular time. It was time to return to Poland, but it proved difficult, as the Swedes were very obedient in complying with social distancing, even on their trains, and tickets to Karlskrona, the ferry port, were scarce.
First you said everything's completely booked, don't bother. And I was like, what? Every blooming train between here and Karlskrona is completely booked. She said, yep.
So I find myself short on interviewees today. It's a rainy day in Stockholm, there's hail's coming down in fact, and everybody's scurrying from A to B, and I'm interested to be interviewed. But how about this gang? How about this likely lot? I am head of this family. and none of my family have COVID-19. And I have certification to demonstrate that to you, sir. I feel a bit depressed because I don't believe him. I think I might have been stuck a bit of a COVID-19 overnight when we were in bed together, not socially distanced. And when I have an opinion about COVID-19, it would take rather a long time for me to explain to you. It's a rather complex kind of an issue. Really beneath most of the, working classes, if we can call them that, classify them that. But I've written numerous papers on the issues of epidemiology, scientific research in disease and infectious diseases and their spread, and also a logistician and of extremely long list of letters after my name, obviously. But if you were to ask me if I consider it honestly, look me in the eye, I would have to say to you that I think COVID-19 is a terrible, terrible nuisance for us all. Why am I so low in this photograph? Is it because I'm a woman? I thought I was Swedish. I have COVID-19 and I'm coming to get you. I also have COVID-19. I was incarcerated in a morgue in Stockholm 2 months ago, but now, thanks to some medicine supplied by her Bill Gates, I have made a complete recovery. And I'll sell you a ship or a dockyard. I happen to be the only sensible one in this family, but nobody listens to me. Nobody. It's a great shame, but I managed to keep a buoyant, lively spirit nevertheless. I believe in the empowerment of the female mind, and I attend regular lectures at the Stockholm State House on the Illuminati. In time, ladies, we will conquer the world. COVID-19, rest in peace, the ghost of a tramp at Stockholm Central Station, 1928. My spirit still roams the empty platforms and the corridors of the halls of Stockholm Central Station, nearly a century after my death from the Spanish flu. Here you go, love, get yourself papers, get yourself informated, disseminated, infected with the press print media. Yep, just 2 bob, love, that's it. Where's your hubby? Yeah, lovely day, innit? That's the phone, that is. Alright, Gov, what you got in that suitcase, mate? You got a secret vial of COVID-19 supplied to you by a big tech company in the States run by Mr. Bill Gates and his lovely lady Belinda, or Melinda, or Trilinda, whatever her name is. What's in there? He's on his way to a laboratory in the province of Wuhan, I bet. Dastardly business, this. I read about it in the newspapers. So as my imagination runs riot, as I pound the platforms of Stockholm Central Station, I just do wonder what the people of a bygone era would have thought. I mean, goodness gracious, most of them died on childbirth, and those that survived got TB or some other horrible disease. What on earth would they make of the situation now? You can't help but thinking, can you? Or just maybe, if you keep yourself bottled up for long enough, good old Bill would have found yourself a vaccine that won't just cure you of the coronavirus, but will be the elixir of life itself and will grant us all immortality. When I step out into the market square, just in front of the hotel where I'm staying, I've noticed that people are starting to emerge in greater numbers than they were when I first arrived in Stockholm over a week ago. It's quite an encouraging sign. You feel the lifeblood of the community has started to bubble up again. Many people have accused Sweden of being reckless, experimenting with their proportionate approach to the coronavirus. Then again, others say that it is a sensible and intelligent strategy. I'm fond of the analogy of a river. Now let's say that you don't completely dam a river, but you allow it to reduce, say, to the level of a stream. By doing so, you do at least ensure the survival of all the vegetation, the wildlife, the wildfowl, the fish, insect life, absolute fundamental biology that underpins life itself, and also the communities and the villages, the farmers, the livestock that draw sustenance from the stream. Water itself, the lifeblood of the community, the artery of the community. And in many ways, an economy is the artery, the lifeblood of the community. And one can't help compare it with the opposite effect that a complete lockdown might lead to. If you're looking at a river that's completely dammed, then quite frankly, you're likely to see the end of the vegetation, the wildlife, the fish, the insect life, and the water drawn by the farmers and the locals. Perhaps in time, perhaps it will take a generation. We'll look upon the Swedish experiment and we will celebrate it, that they proved that it can be done, and we'll acknowledge the importance of the courage they had in the convictions of their medical advisors and in the government. It seems to me that they have ensured the survival of their economy, even at a basic level. They will find it far easier to return to normal economic life after the crisis has passed. What of the other countries? What of my own beloved United Kingdom or Poland, which I've made my second home? They might not fare so well. As I left Stockholm, I found myself more fortified in my original opinion than ever. While clearly the elderly needed to be looked after, we were now using a huge blanket approach, akin to using a shotgun to kill an ugly-looking hornet in the kitchen. The bullets go everywhere, and in our moment of panic, we forget about everything else. Pets, plants, pots and pans, crockery, and other members of our family. I simply could not treat the CoV-2 virus as guilty of the havoc that had been created. Rather, there was something clearly a little bit unhinged by whoever had been wielding the shotgun. But who? I needed to round up the suspects and put them in the dock. Governments, like some sort of dystopian Hunger Games situation, are actually competing for the laurels in minimum number of deaths, having manufactured a controversial league table against which those results can be measured. It's you couldn't make it up, could you, when you think about it? You couldn't make it up. Is this being done consciously or unconsciously? Is it driven by politicians? Is it driven by the other suspects that I'm going to look at during the course of this vlog? Or is it just some sort of witless, blundering exercise in demonstration of humanity's idiocy?